Hey folks, Tempest here, the old geek learning a new trick. We've got a print reveal for you, and we're going to review the last 4 prints we did in this design, look at the differences, what caused them, and what we can learn from that in terms of 3D printing and what we can do to both make use of these kind of artifacts and also avoid them. So join me as we go in a little reveal in detail. So first of all, let's see if this little puppy, how well this comes off the plate. Yeah, right. So much for that. I was hoping for a nice snap. It was already released. I have recently taken to not cleaning this build plate very much due to concerns over IPA taking the surface off. And I've taken to just kind of letting it cool, giving it some time. And a lot of my prints are just popping right off. Without a lot of effort, and I just make sure I don't touch it too much with my hands. All right, so how did this guy turn out? What do you think? We wanted something that had a little bit finer grain to it. Let's look at all 4. All right, here's number 1. This was our very first print. This was with just even scaling. I didn't do any stretching in the Z-axis. And we got a lot of artifacting here, as you sort of might expect. And frankly, I should have even predicted that and never even done this print in the first place, but I was being lazy and just trying to see what I would get, how bad it would be. But as I looked at it, that artifacting was kind of fun, and I wanted to play with it a little. But I wanted to reduce it, and my wife also said she thought this thing looked kind of thin. So what I did was try to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and in the process, didn't get what I want, but... well, I learned something, which, you know, that experience is what you get when you didn't get what you wanted. And that resulted in this guy here. Okay, this little benchy is not going to be able to live here. We'll move him back. I did 2 things. I reduced the layer height to 0.12 instead of 0.2. And then I scaled it up slightly in this direction, about roughly 50% over what it was. I just shot for an actual distance. In this case, I think I had it at 12 millimeters. And what I ended up doing was greatly reducing this stair-stepping effect, this sort of artificial wood grain look here. And that was actually kind of overkill for what I had wanted, because since this is for Rob, he's a woodworker, I wanted to make use of this artifact. So then we went for a 3rd print. Now this one is still stretched up like this one is, but I dropped back to the 0.2 millimeter layer height. And so now we had the larger tree rings almost identical to the first one. A little bit tighter because of the Z scaling. You can see it especially right here and how tight these guys are together. If you just kind of look at the level of any step up here, these are definitely bigger. So it did shrink it down, but not really as much as I had hoped for. I could try scaling this up even more, but then that starts to make this dome more and more pronounced, because I'm only scaling the Z. I'm not scaling the X and the Y. So it's raising that point and really making that dome, changing the curvature there. So we went back to the thin print and a 0.2 layer height. So just like this one here. So I got the smaller rings, but they weren't quite as compacted as this one. It doesn't get quite as fine out here. It looked like the tree was starving. And I think I do like this overall look. If I really wanted it to be thicker, there are tricks I could do in CAD. I would need to learn a few things, go review a couple of videos on differential, doing different things to different parts of a CAD drawing. You know, scaling just one part of it and not the other, that kind of thing. But I have yet to jump into that particular new trick, refreshing my CAD skills. They are well more than 2 decades, if not maybe closer to 3 decades old. And a lot has happened since the days of DOS with CAD. So what causes this? Now, if you guys are experienced 3D printers, you know this, but I'm going to get into this a little bit for the folks for whom this is not, they're new to this journey, let's put it that way. So I reached into the old scrap bucket over here and found a few things that I thought might be able to work as visual aids. So these are little round discs that were the ends of supports for this. And they happen to be just about a proportion of 1/4 to 1 across here, which is about as low as you kind of want to go on a nozzle. So you can almost think of this as what you would get if you brought a print head down and just go a little tiny dot of filament, no bigger, no wider than that print head, and that would be what it remains. The path that this can trace is what you would get. You can think of that like the opening of the print nozzle. So, for example, if I'm trying to trace around something like this, the printers have a lot of ability to move precisely in all directions. So they can really trace this very well if that's what their objective is. If it is a larger print head, let's say this was a larger diameter one, you might have some issues, and you may not be able to do finer detail like something like this shape. You can't cut quite as tight an outside corner, but you put down more filament at once, so it prints a lot faster. But going back to this, if this represents like the width that you can put down at minimum, well, this height represents the minimum you can do in a step. And for reasons that are too geeky to get into right now, it's best to print at about between 1/2 and 1/4 of the nozzle diameter in terms of the height. You go too low and you're trying to squirt up this really thin thing, you get too high and the edges get much more rounded. So this ends up being about the right proportion. But if you notice, if we're going in steps, if this was the z-axis running this way, and this is the minimum I can print, and I'm trying to trace around that, well, that next layer, there's going to have to be some kind of stair step there. It's unavoidable because we have to print something that's this somewhere between basically this thickness and that thickness. That would represent like a 0.2 layer height with a 0.4 nozzle. Real close to it. It's a little tiny bit taller, but bear with me. So, on a 0.2, you've got really big steps to try and follow this contour. And it doesn't matter that the printer can move very precisely this way because you're running and printing the whole layer there. You're not moving the print head up and down. The effector, as it were. I call it a print head. That's probably the wrong terminology, but I've been dealing with printers for so long. So that's just a fundamental limitation of this method of printing. And so normally if you want to get fine detail, like if you want to print something like this and not see all these ridges, you stand it up or you print it at some kind of an angle so that all of this gets minimized. You can trace around corners, you can get fine detail, like look at the edges of the play button here, okay? So you can execute some pretty amazing stuff. Outside corners are harder to make acute than inside corners. You're never going to get sharper than the radius of that on an outside corner. It's kind of impossible. Anyway, that's just a little about 3D printing and the limitations of it, and also an idea of how we can work within that and use different settings or perhaps a minor rescale of the model to get different effects. So let me know, folks. I really am curious to know. Let me see if I can arrange these in the right way. Yeah, okay, here we go. What do you think looks best in terms of something that we should, as a gift for Rob here? Do you like the original 0.2 layer with the bigger, broader steps? Do you like the 0.12? Like not scaled up, or the smoother? I'm kind of torn mostly between these two myself, but I'd love to know. The other thing is this: I got some wood PLA in. Now it seems a bit absurd and kind of crazy to print in plastic impregnated wood for a woodworker, but I don't know, it's tempting. Should I print one of these in the wood PLA and see how it comes out? Let me know, and if so, which one you want me to print. So again, these are 0.2 layer. This is 0.12 for the layer. These are just original scaling. These are stretched up in the Z. Let me know in the comments what you think, and we'll maybe get this wrapped up and get this stuff off to Rob. I'm eager to give him a little present here for being one of the folks that kind of inspired me to jump into doing this stuff. and roped me in with his call out to makers for Captain Corey. So if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be doing this. So there you go. I'm blathering on. This is the point where I'm supposed to tell you to like and subscribe and do all the YouTubey things. And I'm going to put some like things up here that you can click to go see other stuff or subscribe to the channel. It's all that standard YouTubey stuff. I'm learning, folks. This is the new trick for me, is the YouTube channel. This is a slightly new trick. I've been doing this for about a year or so. I've learned a few things, and I want to pass that along as much as I can, and also nod out to the various creators for whom I got my knowledge. We'll do a video going over that too. Anyhow, hopefully that explains a few things. Like and subscribe. Have a nice holiday season, the remainder of it, and I will see you next time.